Our guest speaker this morning is Douglas Wilson. About Doug Wilson, after graduating from UC Santa Barbara in religion and philosophy, at age 20 he went to Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley and was ordained in the First Unitarian Church of Brooklyn in 1971. He founded Rao Conference Center in 1974 and served as the executive director of UU Rao Camp and Conference Center until 2012. He's a Unitarian Universalist minister, writer, political activist, amateur comedian, nonprofit entrepreneur, wise guy, collage artist, and philosopher. Welcome, Douglas. And finally, this is a good time to...
Good morning again. In lieu of pastoral reflection, I am going to have 3 readings this morning. The first is about what you learn from watching movies. One man shooting at 20 men has a better chance of killing them than 20 men shooting at 1 man. When driving a car, it is normal to look not at the road ahead, but at the person beside you or in the back seat. The ventilation system of any building is a perfect hiding place. No one will ever think of looking for you there, and you can travel to any other part of the building you want without difficulty. Police departments give their officers personality tests to make sure they are assigned a partner who is their exact opposite. A man will show no pain while taking the most ferocious beating, but he will wince when a woman tries to clean his wounds. If staying in a haunted house, women should investigate any strange noise in their most revealing underwear. During all police investigations, it will be necessary to visit a strip club at least once. Cars that crash almost always burst into flame. Any person waking from a nightmare will sit bolt upright and pant. Honest and hard-working police officers are traditionally gunned down 3 days before their retirement. You can tell if a man is British because he will be wearing a bow tie. When confronted with an evil international terrorist, sarcasm and wisecracks are your best weapon. All bombs are fitted with electronic timing devices with large red numbers, so you know exactly when they are going to go off. And the more a man and a woman hate each other, the more likely they are to fall in love. Now this one is from Jerry Mander, who wrote a book called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television. One of the points of the book is that you really can't summarize complex information, but television is a medium of summary that reduces everything to slogans that require everything to be packaged and reduced and announced in a slogan-like form. This book isn't really 4 arguments. It's hundreds of arguments broken down into 4 categories having to do with the variety of effects that are not normally discussed. Most criticisms of television have to do with the program content. People say if there was less violence or less sexism or less of this or more of that, television would be better. We'd have good television. My own feeling is that it's very important to improve the program content, but what television has that television has very important effects aside from the content, and they may be more important than the content. They organize society in a certain way. They give power to a very small number of people who speak into the brains of everyone in the system, night after night after night, with images that make people turn out a certain kind of way. It increases the passivity of people who watch. It changes family relationships. It changes understandings of nature. Reading is a good medium for understanding complexity, but television flattens perception down to a very reduced form, and information needs a fair amount of complexity to be understood. And the medium has inherent qualities which cause it to be that way. That was written in 1978, and in 1972, Pauline Kael, the great movie reviewer of the New Yorker magazine, wrote this in a review of Clockwork Orange. At the movies, we are gradually being conditioned to accept violence as a sensual pleasure. The directors used to say they were showing us the real face and how ugly it was in order to sensitize us to its horrors. You don't have to be very keen to see that they are now, in fact, desensitizing us. They are saying that everyone is brutal and the heroes must be brutal as the villains, or we will turn into fools. There seems to be an assumption that if you're offended by movie brutality, you are somehow playing into the hands of people who want censorship. But those who believe in censorship are primarily concerned with sex, and they generally worry about violence only when it's eroticized. This means that practically no one raises the issue of the possible cumulative effects of movie brutality. Yet surely, when night after night atrocities are served up to us as entertainment, it's worth some anxiety. We become clockwork oranges if we accept all this pop culture without asking what's in it. How can people go on talking about the dazzling brilliance of movies and not notice that the directors are sucking up to the thugs in the audience? And now we'll have the offertory. Thank you. That was lovely. There is an adage where people talk about, well, you're only preaching to the choir, but I've been in a fair number of churches where the choir is half the congregation, and I don't mind preaching to the choir at all. Pauline Kael, from whom we just had a reading, wrote a book called I Lost It at the Movies. I've always thought that was a great title, since that happened to me too. I come to you today not as an expert, nor as a scholar, but as a lover of movies. When I was a lad, many a Saturday afternoon was spent watching cartoons, a serial, previews, newsreels, and a double feature at the California Theater, which cost 9 cents. Even then, the movie business was about selling popcorn, candy, and sodas. It isn't like I didn't play outside. We played soldiers, with the Germans being the bad guys, in the hills of Santa Barbara, which are now probably fenced off and private property. Or we played basketball, baseball, and football endlessly. I don't have much of an idea what kids are doing these days. A recent New Yorker cartoon has a kid saying, "Go out and play? What is this, 1962? I grew up in Santa Barbara, where, as I said, it last snowed in 1946. And when I was 8, I saw the movie White Christmas and fell in love with snow. I had no idea who Irving Berlin was, but my love for White Christmas had a lot to do with why I ended up living less than a mile from Vermont. The movie holds up well, though Around the World in 80 Days, which won the Academy Award for the Best Picture in 1956, is terrible. They belittled every third world country they went through. When I was in divinity school, though, at Starr King, I was a young man and I had access to the University of California, where they often showed French New Wave and Italian and Swedish movies. Part of me was learning how to become a snob, as people do in graduate school, but I really loved many of these movies, like Francois Truffaut's 400 Blows and Jules and Jim, Eric Rohmer's Claire's Knee, and the great Federico Fellini's 8½. These movies were and are terrific. In my personal opinion, there's only 5 good things that have happened in the last 35 years in this country. One is the resurgence of small farms and community-supported agriculture. Another is the acceptance of lesbians, gays, bis, and transsexual people as legitimate members of society. UUs can be proud of the leadership role we played in that acceptance. A third is the revival of bakeries that bake real bread. The fourth is microbreweries that make and serve real beer and ale. The fifth, and this is the important one, is Netflix. Almost every movie ever made is now available to us as close as your mailbox. I used to have to drive 7.7 miles to pick from about 200 movies that were in a store. Then I had to drive home. Then I had to return the movies the next day. And it was not good. So when Netflix has dramatically improved the quality of my life, I only wish I had invested in the stock, because I saw what a great idea it was as soon as I heard about it. But I don't tend to think in investment banker terms very often. When I was growing up, we didn't get a television until I was in the 8th grade. Nowadays, pretty much everyone has television from birth, though some people wisely make restrictions for their children. Many well-educated people look down on television, and I do too. I like to tell people, we don't have a TV. Actually, we do have a TV, we just don't have reception. So I don't watch the TV that comes over the airwaves, or however it gets here these days. Last week, I got into my head to watch the Patriots play in the Super Bowl. And I asked some people who have TVs, but I couldn't find anybody who was watching the game. So I went to a bar up the road in Vermont. If you grew up watching football, the Super Bowl is sort of like Christmas for guys. Though I realize it's a bit like one of those, I'm a bit like one of those people who only goes to church on Christmas Eve. I only watch the Super Bowl when the Patriots are playing, and it's usually my first football game of the year. Most of the ads, however, I enjoy watching, and I've noticed that practically none of them seem to have anything to do with the product that they were selling. Madison Avenue knows how to speak directly to our unconscious mind. These people are way smarter than we are, and we can't resist. In the real old days, people had the Bible and the Greek myths to stimulate their imagination. Later, people often sat around the fireplace, reading and talking, and storytellers were very popular people. Tell us a story, Daddy. But now our stories are TV shows, taking 30 or 60 minutes, or movies told in 2 hours. Instead of sitting around the fire, we sit around the screen, hypnotized by the little dots and the pale blue light, indulging in a collective dream. We have Clark Gable as Rhett Butler, famously telling Scarlett O'Hara, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." And we have Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, and Clark Gable. And nowadays, some young people probably think Paul Newman is a purveyor of salad dressings. But we know better than that. That is not the essence of the man, not by any means. I've been very interested in the controversy about the movie American Sniper. I haven't seen it, but if I did, and I went to the multiplex, I'd tell the ticket seller that I was going to Selma. Clint Eastwood doesn't need my money, but Ava DuVernay does. I've been working to create an end to war since 1965, and I fear that American Sniper is being seen by so many people that it becomes a collective memory of the war in Iraq. And it paints the Iraqis as all guilty, all savages, which is what the American Sniper referred to the Iraqis as, savages. It's not true. Instead, I'd like the collective dream to be Martin Luther King's dream, a dream where militarism, racism, and poverty are history. But we have a long way to go. Hollywood movies are now going international with the big markets in China and Brazil and all around the world. Like a lot of Americans, they want to watch things get blown up. They want kill, death, aga. So it doesn't speak well for the future of our movies, but TV shows on HBO and other cable channels are coming to the rescue. They're becoming a bit like A Tale of Two Cities or The Brothers Karamazov, great long books. Over the last 15 years, they've begun to develop TV series that tell ongoing, complex, engaging stories with characters you often grow to love or sometimes to hate. In the 19th century, many novels were serialized in magazines, one chapter each week or each month. Now we watch TV shows, and I watch them on Netflix. The first one we got into was West Wing, where the president, played by Martin Sheen, was sane, smart, and had integrity. So the liberals got a good imaginary president, and the country got W and Dick Cheney. This was not a good trade. The Wire took place in Baltimore. It began as a drug dealer and cop drama, but it soon branched out into exploring newspapers, schools, Baltimore politics and Maryland politics, and other aspects of life in Baltimore. The Wire is credited with being the first show where there wasn't a resolution at the end of each issue and episode. A whole year of shows was one long show that went on with different plots and subplots, winding themselves together into intricate, interrelated stories. Many people now argue that the best writers are working in television rather than movies. I don't know enough to know whether this is true, but I've watched 7 or 8 full TV shows, and they're all excellent. Downton Abbey is a fascinating drama about the class society in England in the early part of the 20th century. And Mad Men is about the rise of advertising in the 1960s. To my eye, it chronicles the rise of a system that turned us from citizens into consumers. Don Draper isn't a nice man, but he sure is interesting, and he's handsome. This is not to say that television is good for us, just because there are some excellent shows. I worry about the medium itself. For one thing, it's controlled by the corporations that have the money to advertise. Many of us turn our children over to the TV starting at age 1. It keeps them quiet and we know where they are, but turning our babies over to corporate-controlled media is not a very good idea. Ronald Reagan's handlers, who were very smart, turned the presidency into a daily photo op, and his presidency got turned into a public relations exercise. Marlon Brando started out as a great actor, and Ronald Reagan was a hack. But Ronnie got better and better until he convinced most of the nation for 8 years that he was the President of the United States. That's acting. Books bring forth a thoughtfulness, a seriousness of purpose that isn't present in television, which somehow lends itself more easily to entertainment. In 1985, Neil Postman published a brilliant and influential book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, in which he argued that television co-opts serious modes of discourse, news, politics, science, education, commerce, religion, and turns them into entertainment packages. This is similar to Jerry Mander's argument in 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television, as he explained that complex information can't easily be simplified or summarized. Television doesn't lead to honest intellectual involvement and rational argument. Those who run television become absorbed in their ratings and how many people are watching, which creates even more shallowness rather than programming that improves the human condition. The decline in attention spans and in our ability to concentrate are being whatever, and deepening with the internet. Forget about reading War and Peace. It's way too long. YouTube, please. Some people don't even want to watch a 2-hour movie anymore. So we're actually becoming a bit more stupid, even though millions of people has Google at their fingertips and can tell you the capital of Tasmania in 15 seconds. I once lived in Italy for 8 months on a sabbatical I took. We had a very hip Swiss friend with whom we stayed for several weeks. He told us about Nutella, which is an extremely popular spread that's made with hazelnuts, sugar, and palm oil. It has a consistency like peanut butter, and my friend said the only thing that would cause a revolution in Europe was if they took away Nutella. In my opinion, 3 things have ruined the 20th century. The first was the automobile, which has changed the face of our country dramatically. The second is television, and the third is perpetual war. We've been at war since 1941, and it's getting worse in the 21st century. However, if we were even to try to eliminate television, we would really have a revolution here. It's just not going to happen. It's built into our lives. It's our default entertainment system. It's so easy. Who is more funny, me or a Hollywood writer making $1 million a year? The quips that people make in movies are funnier than our day-to-day conversation. So why not live vicariously? One of the most influential movies of the last 15 years is The Matrix. If you don't know the story, human beings are being kept in a kind of trance, fed experiences that are really only holograms. So they think they're experiencing life, but in reality, their energies are being siphoned off and fed to machines. But most people are asleep and their lifeblood is being stolen from them. Only a few are rebelling. Sometimes I wonder if this is what's happening to us, only it's TV that's draining us, creating a passivity in people that allows our rulers to engage in this ridiculous, never-ending war that's bankrupting our country. Not to mention climate disruption that is endangering the lives of all large mammals on the earth, including humans. In Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, they had feelies. In theaters, people took hold of knobs through which the sensations of the people on the screen are transmitted into the bodies of the people in the audience. In some aspects, we already do this with our imagination. If you can make love to Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt, why not? I don't think it's going to take long for us to get a lot better at creating feelies. Look at where computer games were 20 years ago and where they are now. People will choose to get hooked up to the feelies, and those who create them will make billions. Here's the fundamental problem. The lives people live in the movies are more exciting and more rewarding than ours, so we substitute their lives for ours. George Clooney is way better looking than I am, and Scarlett Johansson is sexier than most everyone. But take your pick. My wife likes Johnny Depp. I kind of like Charlize Theron. Cider House Rules. She was terrific in that. I identified with, not thinking of his name, but movie stars have become our gods. Hollywood has an enormous cultural influence as America amuses and astounds the rest of the world. Well, all this talk about movies, television, The Matrix, and Brave New World is all very interesting. Here is what it all boils down to. We are the big star in our own movie. It is in CinemaScope. It is in 3 dimensions, with feelings. You are the star of your own movie, and you're the director, too. It's up to you. This is a big responsibility. When it comes down to it, we are creating our movie as we go along. If you choose to give away that responsibility to some geniuses in Hollywood, I can't fault you. But I hope you will choose to create your life for yourself. Thank you for coming. And now we'll sing hymn number 354, verses 1, 2, and 4. As you create your own movie, may you win an Academy Award.
Amen.